Economic non-computability. Every economist now living has most likely professed the categorical impossibility of artificial economic calculation. This premise has been central to their curricula for more than a century, and to the present, very few of their initiates have changed their mind. SFEcon exists to propagate a formal solution to the calculation problem, and to develop this solution's uses as a tool of governance. We therefore place economic non-computability foremost among the follies we wish to catalog. Ludwig von Mises formulated the economic calculation problem in 1920. Its solution has since been put forward as the prerequisite to any expectation that the economy might be directed by human reason toward optimal operations. Mises' presupposition that no solution to his problem would ever be forthcoming has since become the basis for disparaging any possibilities for successful economic command. It will be evident, even in the socialist society, that 1,000 hectoliters of wine are better than 800, and it is not difficult to decide whether it desires 1,000 hectoliters of wine rather than 500 of oil. There is no need for any system of calculation to establish this fact. The deciding element is the will of the economic subjects involved. But once this decision has been taken, the real task of rational economic direction only commences, i.e., economically, to place the means at the service of the end. That can only be done with some kind of economic calculation. The human mind cannot orient itself properly among the bewildering mass of intermediate products and potentialities of production without such aid. It would simply stand perplexed before the problems of management and location. The calculation problem is most easily approached from a notion of the economy as a distribution of physical assets among agents of production. As any given asset distribution will be productive to some measurable extent, so there must exist one distribution that is more productive than any other. This uniquely favorable distribution of assets is called the economic optimum. Its discovery is the object of economic calculation. An economic optimum is said to exist when economic assets are distributed among economic agents so as to produce the greatest output of value that might be realized given the economy's current technical potential. SFEcon contends that the economics profession should accept that its calculation problem is solved when presented with a mathematical portrayal of the activities surrounding a generic input-output matrix as it proceeds toward the optimal overall asset distribution implicit in its technical potential. Note that our portrait features a vector of prices to guide the building up and working off of productive assets, and that these physical transactions are interacting with prices to generate financial flows that continuously react back upon price creation. This point is made in contrast to economics' general finding that efficient prices only come into existence upon being discovered through the unencumbered activity of actual markets. SFEcon receives this injunction as dictating that a science of economics is not complete unless and until it embodies plausible abstractions of the processes through which markets continuously resolve economic motives into current prices. Resolving to view the economy as a dynamic, self-organizing system invites an organic approach to macroeconomic causality. This is because the most familiar and well understood of these systems are biological and ecological. Indeed, the most primitive occurrences of rational macroeconomic order are created by what biologists refer to as the insect superorganisms. Ant colonies, beehives, and termite mounds all behave as social leviathans, with each exhibiting an organic logic and purpose that is quite distinct from the logos and telos of its individual participants. Noting that these macroeconomic domains are masterfully directed by some sort of spontaneously activated hive intelligence, SFEcon presumes that worthwhile solutions to the calculation problem would occur in terms of emulating the operations of such meta-minds. The most essential characteristics of a macroeconomy are quite apparent in the insect societies. 1. These societies embrace such huge populations as to preclude any account of economic order based on cooperation among individuals. Comparatively few pairs of the individuals composing these vast social organisms will ever even encounter one another, let alone establish the familiarity required for explicit cooperation. Yet denizens of macroeconomies are constantly immersed in material commerce, often across great distances, with others who are wholly unknown to them. 2. All macroeconomies achieve their efficiencies through divisions of labor. These vocational specialties must synchronize the web of their respective inputs and outputs, such that production of the next generation of goods will replace the assets expended in current production, optimally and with the minimum of waste. Costly capital assets accumulate and are maintained at levels that are just sufficient to optimize overall production. 3. Individuals are so reliant on one another's performance of their vocational specialties that they cannot survive in isolation. In some species, the workers are completely defenseless, while the soldiers' jaws are so overdeveloped that they cannot eat, and must be fed by the workers. 4. The insect societies, having evolved in nature some 500 million years ago, are most assuredly efficient, this in the precise sense in which that term is bandied about by economists. Were these societies not uniquely well suited to their respective environments, evolution would now be presenting us with the social structures of biologically different beings. 5. Abstracting the economics of insect superorganisms brings us to the central question of all economic causality. How are the individual economic participants made aware of what they, in particular, must do next in order to maximize the collective's overall material well-being? Biologists have identified chemical pheromones flowing among the insect economy's participants as their information-carrying particles. These olfactory codes continuously inform each individual of her specific calling through her very chemistry. It should be emphasized, 1, that insects have not the wit to create a central directorate in which to formulate economic plans, nor the intelligence to follow economic plans should such plans be formulated. And 2, that macroeconomic structures emerge naturally only among the animal kingdom's lower phyla. While the macroeconomies created by Homo sapiens do exhibit each of the 5 characteristics examined above, we must note that the pheromones emitted naturally by vertebrates convey nothing suggesting of a vocation, nor of a vocation's place in any complex economic system. The information-carrying particles peculiar to extended human societies are therefore necessarily artificial. These artifices certainly include language and the attendant notions of morality and justice that make human civilizations distinctive. The artificial pheromone we call money is singular in that it seems to control the material substrate of every known, specifically human, social construct. Its dual nature as indispensable, as well as artificial, hence falsifiable, is noted here in support of later elaborations to be made on this topic. Biological organisms, as well as superorganisms, are known to function in relation to their natural homeostasis, which is biology's portmanteau for an organism's uniquely favored state. Homeostasis is essential to biological systems because it embodies the unique physical state to which an organism recurs whenever its activity is complete. If living organisms could not reformulate their homeostatic states, in terms of respiration rate, pulse rate, etc., they could never find rest, and never recover the energy needed for further activity. This meme has found its uses in economic discourse through notions of free markets as guarantors of economic optimality. Uninhibited expressions of freedom in the market will presumably get us what we want from our economy's technical potential. Since we naturally want the most value that can be produced, the economic optimum is, perforce, the state toward which an economic system will recur, while external stimuli are absent. An ability to sense the whereabouts of such a state is therefore posited with the nature of economic systems. While economic optimality is by definition desirable for its own sake, its greater importance inheres with its singularity. The self-organizing dynamic systems of which we have some understanding all appear to achieve order and stability because they respond to stimuli by seeking to re-establish some uniquely specified state that is at least somewhat analogous to biological homeostasis. Absent forceful interference, the macroeconomy can be seen efficiently accommodating technical and demographic shifts, natural and man-made calamities, etc. Rates of return converge, wealth and leisure increase together, and interdependent productive processes align with minimal waste. Supply chains operate efficiently, and so on. Observing that systematic behavior emerges to whatever extent voluntary economic activity is allowed, we must conclude that economic operations are naturally conducive toward order in all but the most extreme and rare circumstances. This being the case, we must conclude that efficient economic calculation is always taking place all around us. If the economy itself were not continuously and accurately performing economic calculus, it could not formulate reference to a homeostatic state toward which to direct its operations. Hence, it could not control its observed dynamic stability. So if the economic calculation problem does not have a realizable solution, then the subject matter of economics cannot exist. Absent a solution, the economic system simply could not persist on the dimension of time, and could not, therefore, be presenting us with systematic behavior of any kind. Assertions of economic non-computability are thus most readily contradicted through direct and inescapable inferences that economic calculation is occurring. Even bugs do it, albeit without much cognition as to how or why. But when a scientist sees order, he acquires an obligation to explain it. He does not satisfy himself with facile suppositions proving that explanation is beyond the capabilities of his merely human intellect.